Welcome back to Tide Pod on the YouTube home of Tide Illustrated. Jack Knowlton, Tony Sakalis, back with you. We will be with you in Madison on Saturday. Tony, we have been talking extensively to these coaches, these players, how excited they are to go on not only to go on their first road game of the season, but go to a unique environment up at Camp Randall in Madison. So I'll ask you, how excited are you to cover a game up in Madison, Wisconsin, as the Badgers face the Tide?
Yeah, adding another state to my list of states I've covered Alabama athletics in. I have not done Wisconsin. This is probably the only opportunity I could think of, other than maybe like the NCAA tournament, to do Wisconsin. So I'm pretty excited about it. It's Camp Randall is one of those places that it is in a lot of bucket lists. I'm not as familiar of like I've learned more over the past year, kind of like getting ready about this. I knew a little bit about jump around, but no, it sounds like a pretty cool place. Madison sounds like a pretty cool place. I mean, you're a Wisconsin native. You've been to Camp Randall a million times, so you know more than I do. But I am excited about adding another really good college venue to my list.
Yeah, I mean, I'll share that. Yeah, I did grow up in Wisconsin. My mom was a Wisconsin alumni, so I grew up going to games with season tickets. It's great if you're an Alabama fan listening to this show and you're going. You will have a blast. I've actually already made my way to Madison. Ran into a bunch of Alabama fans in the airport who seem very excited. So I know they're trying. I think they're trying to crimson it out. At least that's been the word on our message board with Alabama fans going. They're trying to.
That sounds counterproductive because like
the colors are too similar. It's a little bit tough.
Red, so I mean, I guess it'd be like a different shade of red, but it's gonna look pretty red. I would imagine that the Badger fans are going to wear their, I don't know what they call it, scarlet or
yeah, it's I think it's just scarlet
or just red.
Yeah, it's like that Cornell red.
I wish somebody would just call it red. Like red.
Yeah, they get a little. We're gonna start doing hex color codes all of a sudden. That'll be what they're known as by that point. But yeah, it'll be a very, very fun atmosphere. Quick thought from you, Tony, on the 11 a.m. kickoff, because I know some people kind of differ with that. Obviously, it's the big noon Fox thing. That's what they do for these Big Ten games. I know you'd think a game maybe Wisconsin's not quite at the caliber of like a Georgia, but a kind of biggish game at 11.
Yeah, the 11 o'clock games are terrible because like. I mean, I guess you can do some stuff the night before, but like it kind of hampers your ability to kind of see the city as much. Or you're seeing it after the game, but it's just not the same. There's something about that build up, kind of experiencing the town and then it culminating with the game. It's just kind of a buzzkill when the game's at 11. From a fan's perspective, I mean, like if you're gonna get a little buzz, if you're gonna tailgate, like you got to start like super early to do so. I mean, I know that's not a problem for most fans, especially some of the younger fans, but it just seems like it's, this is a big game. This game's been circled on Alabama's calendar for a while. It's just kind of a bummer, I guess, that it's going to be in this weird 11 o'clock, time slot.
All right. Sorry about that, Maya. If you're watching on the YouTube, my internet self was stuck in happy mode. Just that elated about Tony's joking about 11 a.m. kicks. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think Alabama fans will just have to get some extra rest the night before than they're used to before joining maybe Badger tailgates. I will look forward to seeing that. Maybe some united tailgating before the game. Maybe they work together to try and prepare for an early kick. We know DeBoer.
You have the Roll Badge shirts.
Yeah.
Heading in. That Wisconsin's printing a shirt that says "Roll Badge."
Yeah, it's interesting.
Kind of weird, but like roll with it, I guess. Yeah,
you got to when you get.
Yeah,
you have a unique game like this, you might as well roll with it. No pun intended. But
football equivalent of like what is in soccer? It's the dual scarves, the shared scarves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, it's the college football equivalent of that. Everyone's happy.
Similar-ish colors. You can just call it the Wisconsin red and the Alabama white, because it's not the crimson. You might as well. Yeah, we'll see. I know Kalen DeBoer didn't really give much on by way of his rituals for an 11 a.m. kick for his team, but we know, Tony, they are preparing. They're pumping in the extra crowd noise for Wisconsin to kind of be prepared for that atmosphere. And you wrote in your story a couple of things to watch for, and I think. Let's not delay any further. Get into the position group that I know everyone's going to have their eyes probably glued to after their performance in week 2. That is the offensive line. Let's start with the injuries. What's kind of the latest situation there with Kadyn Proctor, Elijah Pritchett? What might that rotation kind of look like given their kind of latest status heading into Saturday?
Yeah, it sounds like Alabama's in a good spot there. Literally, I think those are the words that Kalen DeBoer used in terms of talking about both Kadyn Proctor and Elijah Pritchett. I think they both practiced this week. It sounds like Alabama didn't give a definite thumbs up on either of them, but it sounds like pretty optimistic about both of those players in terms of their availability. So that'd be nice for Alabama to get a kind of a full strength offensive line. They haven't had that this year. Obviously if Kadyn Proctor's, going to play or going to start, he'll slide back into that left tackle role. That will allow Tyler Booker to play the left guard role. And then you've got Parker Brailsford at center, Jaden Roberts at right guard. And then it kind of opens up the competition a little bit more for the right tackle position, because you've got Wilkin Formby, who struggled last game against USF, against Elijah Pritchett, who kind of came in relief and did a good job at the right tackle spot. I would still expect Formby to start at right tackle if everyone's healthy. But I think that, you might see some rotation there at the right tackle spot. And it would just kind of keep both players fresh and ensure that, maybe the hot hand could play in terms of right tackle. So, I mean, Alabama would totally welcome that news. Still TBD to see if both of those guys will play, but it's looking pretty optimistic in that regard.
Yeah, DeBoer's seemed like both of them are inching closer to being good to go. So that opens up some rotation things. We got to talk to Coach Cap, or you talked to Coach Cap here this week, reiterating the mistakes. Alabama's offensive line, you noted, flagged 8 times for 70 yards against South Florida. Cap, there's no excuses. That's not why that's why we practice. That's what we've got to get done no matter who's out there. What did you make of what he had to say about his unit, and what improvements are you expecting here in week 2 from that group as a whole, no matter where the health situation is?
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of those holding penalties, both him and Kalen DeBoer said that they were down to technique, down to players, kind of straying away from, what they're taught. And so that's a fixable mistake. It's not like, Alabama players are just being overpowered in terms of, what, they're, it's not like a thing where they can't do it. It's mistakes. It's fixable mistakes. It's not necessarily a talent issue. So that's encouraging. It's just a matter of getting those fine details and making things work. So I think that, when you look at it, I think that's the big focus this week. And it's just like that attention to detail. You got players like Wilkin Formby, who is still a redshirt freshman. This is only his 3rd real game. So you got to work on that. It's going to be a big road trip. So that's going to be something to monitor moving forward as well. And then, also Kadyn Proctor might be a little bit rusty after not playing 2 games. So another thing you got to watch for is just how does he get back in the offense, and does he have any early struggles? But like I said, the focus this week was solely on, just technique and the fine details. So Coach Cap said that, the unit, responded pretty well. So I take his word for it, and we'll just have to see. But I think this is going to continue to be a work in progress until you can get that front 5, that strongest 5 out there and really allow them to gel. So I think it's really important, Jack, that they all play this week so that you can get those reps in before, then you have the off week and then Georgia, which is a big game. So the more you can get this unit playing together in a game setting is going to be really important.
Absolutely. If there is a time for a bounce back game before it gets, really, really tough in the trenches of SEC, this feels like a good place to do it on the road, tough atmosphere, and facing some men in the trenches in Wisconsin. I mean, no disrespect to Western Kentucky and South Florida's defensive linemen, but it's a little bit of a step up in power and physicality. And actually, that's a good segue into another position group. And we have another quote of the year. I think the last one we touched on was Christian Robinson with the ball speaking to his unit. I have another nominee from Mr. Jamarcus Shepard describing Wisconsin. Quote, "Up in Wisconsin, it's a little bit colder. It's a little bit more burly. There are a few more beards out there coming out of face masks and whatnot. I just told them meaning his wide receiver unit, to be prepared to see a bunch of Grizzly Bears up there. We've got to be able to go out there and defeat the Grizzly Bears." I do have to fact check 2 of these things. One, it's not going to be very cold this time in Wisconsin, because I don't think Alabama would ever come up there in a November game. 2, unfortunately, there are no Grizzly Bears in Wisconsin. It's a brown bear state. So
Dang.
I still love the quote.
Oh, you should have like stepped in and been like, actually.
I still love the quote from Shepard, but he's talking about his receivers units, Tony, a unit that's averaging 19 yards per catch. He touched on something interesting where he's letting the corners be a little bit more physical, a little more handsy. This is a guy who has experience in the Big Ten. What'd you make of his comments, and what are you expecting from the receiver unit? We're going to talk about a guy they're going to be going up against in a second, but just their expectations for them against pretty disciplined Wisconsin secondary.
I think that's, kind of a low-key underrated concern for Alabama, maybe, because when you look at this receiving unit, it's not the biggest. You've got some explosive guys, some really like shifty guys, but when he comes on, like, when you get physical, there's not that big guy. I mean, maybe Caleb Odom, right? But then outside of him, it's a bunch of guys that, aren't necessarily the biggest. Now, that being said, Alabama, was one of the things we talked about this week was Ryan Williams leading the unit in blocking, and he's all 6 foot 175. But a lot of that stuff, when it comes to blocking, it comes down to technique and quickness. And so like Alabama's really good at that in terms of maybe run blocking on the edge. I don't think they're going to struggle with that. I think it's more, maybe some pass interference calls don't get called, and you kind of have to deal with that, especially if you're over reliant on those deep balls. You can't just go out there, chuck a deep ball and hope for a pass interference call, because, in the Big Ten, they're used to playing a little bit more physical. Maybe some of those, iffy calls where there's a little bit of contact, that maybe they don't get called. So you've got to be able to play through that, and kind of man up a little bit and play a little bit tougher. I think Alabama is capable of doing it. I mean, you look at guys like Kendrick Laws, a tough guy. Jeremy Bernard has played in this conference before. So it's not, and then, like I said, with Ryan Williams, he's a guy that's, kind of demonstrated his ability to add that blue collar aspect to his game. So, I mean, it's not like Alabama can't do it, but it's something that they haven't faced. And Grizzly Bears, and I think they're going to, it's another maybe good test heading into SEC play as well.
Yeah, I wonder if it's. I don't think I question Alabama's receivers from like a willingness to be involved in contact standpoint. Like I think, like you said, they're totally willing to go against a really physical team. I just wonder how much, Wisconsin maybe just makes things difficult for them, and that's just used to how they're playing, especially at home. And then we can get into this. An experienced secondary. This is a team that has a redshirt junior and a redshirt senior at corner, and then a senior, and then a redshirt senior at safety. And I know you should touch on him and Hunter Wohler, who I think is a name Alabama fans are really getting to know. He had 120 tackles last year. He's a Colin Hitchler product, of course, who's at Alabama now as their safeties coach. Couple of interceptions, couple pass deflections last year as well. What's kind of Alabama expecting in him? What did we get to hear in terms of some intel from him from Coach Hitch as well?
It's just a solid player and a guy that can really tackle. He's kind of comes as advertised too, and he's a guy that can make some plays in the coverage game too. I think he had 6 pass deflections or something last year. He's already got 2 this year. He's big for a safety. He's 6'2", 218, I think I saw. So he's almost like having an extra linebacker back there. And so he's definitely somebody that Alabama's going to key in on. Obviously, Wisconsin has, as poor as Wisconsin's been, I mean, their defense has been solid. So I think that, that's going to be something that Alabama's going to have to work around. He's going to be a problem in the running, against the run. He's going to be like one of those physical guys in the passing game that we just talked about. So he's going to be somebody Alabama's keying on. Fortunately, like you said, Colin Hitchler, kind of has the scouting report a little bit on him. He's never going to give any of that away, but maybe they know some of his tendencies. Maybe, Hitchler can, knows that he might bite on this look, or he has a tendency to bite on this look. And so those are the kind of things maybe you can kind of work with. I think, sometimes when it's coach against former coach, it's a wash because they both know their tendencies. But if it's coach against former player, I think you kind of give the advantage to the coach because, I mean, obviously he's more advanced in terms of reading things, and, there's going to be that understanding, and maybe having coached him, he might be able to catch him off guard once or twice. I don't think it's going to be a huge advantage though for Alabama.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, Nick Sheridan has said this week that Hitchler's been kind of a good sounding board. There's only so much you're going to gain. He was only there for a year, but he's worked with Mike Tressel and Luke Fickell, who are Wisconsin's DC and head coach, at previous stops. So there is a little bit of an asset there. And yeah, Wohler's going to be one to watch. Another name I'll throw into Ricardo Hallman, a corner, really turned into a shutdown guy last year for Wisconsin. I think those matchups are going to be really interesting. You've got, I think it's just going to be kind of fun to watch this really talented and explosive receiver core against kind of a disciplined veteran group of DBs in Wisconsin, and that could kind of help define things for Alabama and might force some drives to go a little bit more methodical. They're looking to show that they can kind of do that. I think this is maybe a good game to do that with the depth that Wisconsin has at DB. Let's touch on the other side.
On a strong offensive line. Maybe this is the perfect game to get that offensive line back, because you might need to rely on a consistent run game a little bit more against this group.
Absolutely. Let's touch briefly on what Alabama is going to face defensively, because frankly, like you said, this isn't a Wisconsin team that's impressed in their first 2 games. Haven't won. I don't have the scores in front of me, but didn't win by too much against Western Michigan. Didn't win by too much against South Dakota. Why anyone ever bothers scheduling a FBS or FCS Dakota team is beyond me. I feel you're just asking for trouble there. But Tyler Van Dyke, kind of very different from Brown at South Florida in terms of how he plays. They have some good running backs. Obviously, they're always going to be pretty loaded in the trenches. That's just how Big Ten football kind of is. What are you expecting from a defensive standpoint for Alabama in terms of how much trouble they'll face with this Wisconsin offense, and just what you're expecting there from after a decent performance against South Florida?
Yeah, I don't expect too much. I think they match up better against Tyler Van Dyke. They faced him in when he played for Miami. They did a pretty good job against him then. So I think that him being less mobile than Brown last week, Byron Brown, I just think that it's going to be a really good get back game for the defense, even though I don't really feel like the defense was poor at all against South Florida. I could see this I just don't really know how Wisconsin's going to be able to move the ball on Alabama, just because they haven't removed the ball against, lesser defenses. And you look at this Alabama defense, I mean, sure, it finally cracked a little bit against South Florida, but I mean, it took being on the field consistently and like the offense giving it no help. I think, the offense shouldn't find itself, and the offense should be able to move the ball a little bit better. I think, with more people coming back and having another, week under its belt, I would expect the offense to be improved. And I think this defense is not going to face as many troubles. As weird as it sounds, it's not going to face as many troubles as it did with Wisconsin, as it did with South Florida. You also have Golsh, Alex Golsh, the South Florida coach, who's just an offensive guru, and his offense is just tough to stop. I don't necessarily think that Wisconsin's is the same. So I like this matchup a lot more for Alabama than I did last week. And I just think that there's going to be some pride on the line. Alabama's going to be wanting to prove a point. So I think this is going to be a game where you look at and you think, oh wow, the Tide bounced back. And so then we'll have to see from there. But I'm expecting a pretty stout performance on defense for Alabama.
Yeah, I think I agree. And I think it's a fair assessment given just the samples we've had, where you have TJ Finley, who could move a little bit, but is more similar to Van Dyke than Baron Brown certainly was. So I think going off of that alone is enough to I think make that assessment with how they'll deal with the quarterback. It'll be interesting. And yeah, there's definitely going to be a pride thing. I mean, these defensive players said they want to, silence the crowd and, take them out of it pretty early. So they're gearing up for this one. No doubt about it. One thing on special teams we wanted to touch on, Alabama's probably going to have a new punt returner. We saw Jaylen Mbakwe return 1 for 28 yards, looked pretty good, but Cole Adams not looking likely, correct me if I'm wrong, Tony, to play in this one. Mbakwe seems like the guy who might step up there.
Yeah, and Mbakwe is a playmaker, man. It's one of those cases where I don't like to knock Cole Adams, because I see why he has the job. He's a guy that can make a lot of plays, and he's got really sure hands, so like he's the guy that is not gonna mess up in that role. And he still can make some plays. He's not just like kind of, not to put some shade on Slade Bolden, but it kind of never felt like Slade Bolden was going to break a big return when he was Alabama's, returner a few years ago. And I don't feel that with Cole Adams. I feel like Cole Adams has the ability to break a big return, but I think Jaylen Mbakwe is on another level. And I wonder if, the opportunity he has at the punt return role while Cole Adams is out, will Mbakwe ever give this job back up? You know what I'm saying? He had the big return, the 28-yard return on his only attempt last week. It's like if he keeps on doing that, it's going to be a case of like Caleb Downs last year, where he just comes in and takes the job away. I'm not saying that's definitely going to be the case, but I could certainly see it. And Mbakwe is a player that he did everything in high school. He played quarterback for Clay. Can't say it out of my mouth. Clay Chalkville. He played defense.
That's a tough one.
He returned kicks there, so he's well versed in this, and he's just a menace with the ball in his hands. So I could see that being I could see that being a boost almost for Alabama. And not to take anything away from Cole Adams, but I just think Jaylen Mbakwe is such a playmaker. I'm kind of excited to see how he responds and how he kind of handles this role, because it could be a new weapon for Alabama on special teams.
I am too. You always get a little nervous, when it's freshmen. They're eager to do just that and impress, and you have to make smart decisions when you're fielding punts, because you see what happens when you don't. It can be kind of disastrous. But yeah, I think the one he had against South Florida is a pretty good sign for him that he's going to be just fine back there, and like you said, might take over that role, which could be really fun. Huge for the Ryan Williams, Jaylen Mbakwe podcast if that does end up being the case. Lots more highlights.
We could have imagine a podcast where they both score touchdowns. Because
oh my. They do like to go back and forth. I know they were giving each other. You mentioned that Clay Chalkville game. They were talking about who had it harder in the state championship game, and it was you had 280 yards and I had 300 yards, and it's like just an unfair amount of talent.
I mean, Mbakwe has the trump card there because his team did win the title, so yeah,
it did.
That's probably and he was if I'm not mistaken, I don't really cover the high school ranks. Didn't Mbakwe lock up Williams on the final play? It wasn't he in terms of
I don't know. I'd have to go back and look.
The final play, and Williams. I don't know if that's the case or not. Feel free to fact check me on that. But yeah, Mbakwe played up both sides of the ball at times in that championship game, and he won. So I feel like I give, if there's a bragging rights between the two of them right now, it goes to Mbakwe. No matter how hot of a start Ryan Williams has had, when they played each other, Mbakwe won.
Absolutely, yeah. It's that they were going back and forth about that game. I think that was funny. Yeah, we'll have to fact check that. Put that in the comments if you know who got the better of that matchup. I wonder how that even works with that dynamic. You're both committed to Bama. I guess Williams was a little up in the air maybe at that time.
I mean, they were big friends, So
and they were buds.
I think Mbakwe was, obviously a big reason, a big help in getting Ryan Williams to Alabama. So yeah, it's a friendly competition, but I'm sure they both wanted to win that one, right?
Throw back to that saga. That feels like about 1,000,000 years ago at this point. All right, Tony, let's get into it. Your pick for an Alabama player who will win the day against Wisconsin, and a score prediction from you.
Now, look, I don't know of a player that's going to win the day, because my weird prediction, or my prediction of what was going to happen, is not necessarily a player of the day. I'll get to that later. I guess I'm going to go with one of the running backs, and I guess I'll go with Justice Haynes, just because it seems like they're trading big days in the running back room. Justice Haynes had the big day game 1, then Jam Miller had the big day game 2, so maybe it's a Justice Haynes day. Who knows? I think they're going to run the ball a little bit better, so I'll give it to Justice Haynes as my big day player from this one. I don't know. It'd be crazy if he broke 100 yards and they just have a different 100-yard rusher every week. I think that could actually happen. So yeah, I'll be bold. I'll say Justice Haynes, 100 yards. Alabama wins. I need a score.
Yes.
Hold on. Shoot. I like to be.
I was going to say you have a cheat card for this.
I like to be accurate in my scores, and I gave one to the Wisconsin people, so I'm going to stick with it. Yeah, okay. 31 Alabama 31, Wisconsin 13. That's what I'm going with.
Okay.
I almost kind of feel weird about giving that 13, just because I just basically talked about how I don't think that Wisconsin's going to score. But I mean, that could be a lot of things. That could be a turnover. That could be, I'll give them the 13 points. I think that seems like a fair score line. I think it's going to be one of those games where Alabama is in control the whole time. And then I think that, it's going to be a case of Alabama's just going to run the clock out in the fourth quarter, and it's just going to be pretty smooth moving forward. So that kind of pairs well with my Justice Haynes pick. So I'll stick with that. 31-13, Justice Haynes, 100 yards. That's what it is.
My pick for who's going to win the day I feel like it's it feels like a waste to use him on this one. But I really actually think, given we just talked about Wisconsin's secondary, and I think with how disciplined their defense is, with the way they can slow games down, my pick for who's going to win the day is Jalen Milroe. I think there's going to be some times where he's going to have to pick his spots a little bit more, and they're not going to be able to run as many explosive plays that are going to be able to come off. I think he's going to have to chunk plays way down the field a little bit, and that's what we want to see, right? I think that's what we're all kind of waiting for, that next evolution to come. And I don't think it gets all the way there in this game, just because I think you still have to prove it against probably better SEC competition. But I think you start to see the signs on Saturday. I really think Milroe shows up for this one. So he'll be my pick.
One thing to point out about that too, we talked about, how Alabama's got to get used to more physical play in the secondary and all of that. Wisconsin's got to get used to stopping a quarterback as fast as Jalen Milroe. It's not often in the Big Ten that you get those kind of quarterbacks. It's not a style like it's. He's got that SEC speed that everyone talks about, and even fast. He's even fast for, he's one of the most electrifying players in college football. So nobody's really used to stopping Jalen Milroe, but a Wisconsin defense that doesn't see that a lot, I think it's going to be tough. So I think that's probably a decent pick. Maybe not even with his arm. I mean, obviously, I think, the points you made about his passing ability and improving there, those are valid. But I think just also with his legs, I mean, just the amount of plays he can probably open up, they're probably not used to stopping that.
I think that's a good point. Yeah, good point. I could win on two fronts. He could also just run all over them because they're not used to stopping a dual threat like that. And then I'm going a very similar scoreline. I'm actually giving Wisconsin a little more. I'm going 31-17. My prediction is opening drive. It's two really long drives to open the game. So I think Wisconsin marches down the field. They do their thing, punch one in. And then Alabama kind of does the same thing. And Wisconsin's like, oh, I didn't think they'd have the response like this. And then Alabama goes and kind of cruises from there. Wisconsin gets a couple late and, makes the scoreline a little more flattering. But I think, to your point, Alabama controls pretty much the whole way.
Both of us have a first under the Kalen DeBoer era in that we both have Graham Nicholson. I'm assuming you're guessing that Graham Nicholson's going to kick his first field goal, but that has not happened yet. And both of our scorelines would indicate that Graham Nicholson's going to get on the board for the first time in 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's got to happen at some point. I think there will be a drive where Alabama drives and gets stopped enough to where they kick it, because it really has just been 3 and out or touchdown. It's got to come to an end at some point. It's the Lou Groza winner. He's got to be unleashed, at some point. So I agree. I think that does happen. All right. One thing I want to touch on before we do picks quickly, something I forgot on defense. Do you have any thoughts? I know you wrote a bit about the targeting call. Obviously, Justin Jefferson and Wisconsin linebacker Jake Chaney, they've traded. It's a 1-for-1 trade of missing first halves for targeting calls. I've seen a lot on both sides here just about, whether or not they were the correct calls to be made. You wrote a little bit about it. I'm just curious your thoughts. And obviously, a loss for Alabama in the first half to not have Justin Jefferson.
Sure, it's a loss for both players, for both teams. Maybe more so on the Wisconsin side because Justin Jefferson is a backup, whereas the Wisconsin player is a starter, if I believe right. Yeah. So
Jake Chaney.
So that's tough for both sides. Look, it's targeting in both cases. Like by the letter of the law, it's targeting. I just feel like there's got to be some kind of review policy to determine. I just hate that these players are missing multiple. They're missing. The first half of a game for just a mistake. I don't think either of those hits were malicious. I get the safety. I almost wish there was like a 2-strike policy or something like that, where it's like a yellow card, red card kind of thing, in terms of, you get a warning. And then if you do it again, you're out, because I just feel like it's really harsh to have a mistake. You can make a mistake on the first play of the game. You lose that player for the whole game just for one.
Yeah.
I just feel like maybe a warning policy would be beneficial, or maybe some kind of review policy to say like, okay, well, he got ejected, but does he need to miss the first half of the next game? Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's very fair. And I like your take too. I think you have that a lot in football where sometimes it's like, you can't punish the refs for officiating correctly. You have to look at the rule and be like, maybe there needs to be some sort of reevaluation there, or reevaluation of, like you said, how you assess the penalties, if it's too harsh, or what has to maybe be changed there. But yeah, it'll be interesting, something to watch for sure, especially on the Wisconsin side. Like you said, Jake Chaney's a good player for them, so they'll miss him for half. Alabama will probably look to take advantage. All right, let's run through. We've got game picks. You are currently up. I scratched week 1 because I forgot to note the scores and I didn't want to go back and look. But you're still winning, so I'm giving you you've got the advantage. You won 3-2. This week I did pick one non-SEC game because some of the SEC games aren't very good, and I didn't feed you these before, so you're picking these ones on the fly. So I apologize for that. But we'll go into it. First one, ranked matchup. Not an expected ranked matchup, might I add. Number 24, Boston College, going to Columbia, Missouri to face the number 6 Tigers. Mizzou, 16-point favorites at home against a ranked BC team.
And so they're at home. Yeah. Give me Mizzou. Give me Mizzou. I'm going to lean. I don't like the ACC, so any kind of my dad's from Boston. He didn't go to beat Boston College, but, I've always kind of had a special place for Boston College. But yeah, give me Mizzou. I think a lot of these ACC teams are just overrated. I think that's one of those cases where you probably put Boston College ranked to kind of create a matchup almost,
Yeah.
So I'll take the Tigers if it was at home. Maybe if it was in Boston, I would say 16 points is a lot, but I like this Missouri team. I think it's a top 10 team for me. So. Yeah.
A little history there. Mizzou went to BC just a couple of years ago and lost in overtime. So you're not far off with if it was in Boston, things might be a little different.
Is this like
this is a strange home and home. Missouri's AD made some weird choices. Other fun fact I'll throw in: Mizzou, first team since 2019 FBS team to allow 0 points in their first 2 games, which I couldn't believe that no other team's done that since.
This has got like a Catholic feel to it, right? Because Missouri is a very Catholic. Even though it is not a Catholic school, you got the St. Louis kids. So I feel like, and then you've got like an unofficial Catholic school versus like an actual Catholic
BC.
School. So,
I will also go Mizzou in the points. I think they'll be all right. They can corral that running quarterback that BC has in the pocket. He won't make very many good throws. All right. Texas A&M going to the Swamp as 3-point favorites against the Florida Gators. What do you like there?
I like the Aggies. I like the Aggies. I don't really love Florida. I know the Swamp's a tough place to play, but 3 doesn't seem too much. I think give me the Aggies by 7. So I think they cover, not by a ton, but they cover.
I'm gonna say I agree with you because I do, but for the sake of fun, I'm gonna be different. I'm gonna go the Gators cover this and narrowly win. And I think this is the false hope game.
Wait, you
Florida
think you have Gators winning, or you have?
Well, I mean, I'll have them. I guess I'll have them covering. If it's a 3-point game, I assume if they're covering, they probably win. They probably just win outright. But maybe they lose on a field.
No, don't back down now. I just wanted to make sure.
No, I have them covering. When I see a 3-point spread, like that feels like a toss up to me. Like I feel like
now that we put you on the spot, you have to say it. Who's winning?
I mean, sure. I'll take Florida for fun. I think this is the false hope game. Their last 6 games on their schedule might be the hardest games they have. I think maybe they win this and one more, and everyone's like, oh, Billy Napier, maybe he's got something. Graham Mertz, former Badgers quarterback, to bring it back to this game. I think it's a false hope game. I think they win, and then it falls apart.
Forgive me for not doing my research on this one, but did they already go with DJ Langway?
Oh, that's right. I don't know if they've named him. I forgot he did play.
Or is it like because if this is the unveiling, I like almost want to like switch my
flip to Florida.
I almost want to hold on. Let's do a quick little
I actually don't remember. I totally forgot they went with DJ Lagway for a while in their second game. Yeah, do some research for us. I'll take a drink of water.
Let's pull it up.
Great podcast. This is good podcasting.
No. Yeah, he's gonna play in it. Yeah. You know what? I totally change it. I'm gonna take Florida. I'm gonna take them. He was. I mean, look, they played Samford, and they absolutely destroyed Samford 45-7. But he was 18 of 25 for 450 yards and 3 touchdowns. DJ Lagway is like a really, really good player, and I think that bringing him out now that it's at home, now that they I like him. I like the momentum they built with that switch. I totally forgot about that. Just like entered my brain.
Good call.
Give me Lagway and the Gators. Yeah, I'll even have them win outright.
All right, good. Then I'm going to flip it around the other way and be different. I'm going to flip back and I'll take A&M then.
Yeah, no. That's
This
fine.
defense is going to give him DJ Lagway
Well,
is
it's
great.
a lot different than Stanford. Yeah, of course. But.
Yeah, I want to put that on record too. Lagway is good. I totally agree with you. Texas got some dogs up front. You're throwing him into the fire a little bit. And I kind of respect Napier for doing it, but Texas A&M got some guys. All right. I think this should be a quick one. Again, not very many good games in the SEC. Ole Miss, 22.5-point favorites on the road against Wake Forest.
22, man, is a lot on the road.
I think it's on the road. Let me make sure.
God, I just hate the ACC, so I just don't want to pick the ACC. I think I'm still going Ole Miss on this to cover, but 22 point, yeah, it's a lot against the team. Yeah,
it is at Wake Forest.
I don't care. And like Lane Kiffin's the kind of person that would kind of run up a game like that. So, yeah, go ahead and give me the Rebels, even on the road, even with the big spread. I think just the ACC's trash. And but once again, you got a top 10 team in Ole Miss that's one of the better teams.
I am all in on the Rebels this year. I think they're going to be fantastic. I like Lane. I will also take Ole Miss. All right. The worst college football or college game day location of all time for this week.
At least the worst matchup. I don't know if it's the worst
matchup.
location.
Yes, matchup. Sorry, yes. I won't hate on Columbia, South Carolina. All due respect to them. We're going to South Kakalaka for LSU 7-point favorites on the road. The number 16 ranked Tigers against the hosting. You know they're going to come out and party for that game because they randomly got game day because this week sucks. What do you got?
Everyone I talk to loves Nussmeier as a quarterback, and I feel like he is almost to the point of like he was an underrated quarterback, and now he's almost becoming an overrated quarterback. Almost just with like, I don't know, the hype. Maybe it's just the people I hang around with, but everyone puts him as like that top tier quarterback. I'd still like to see it a little bit more. You got 7 points. I think South Carolina is highly overrated though, so I will go with LSU on the road to cover. But I'm not as confident as maybe I thought I'd be on it. I mean, like, look, it's a not super exciting game day matchup, but it's not necessarily the worst. Yeah. Like it should be a decent game, I think. I don't think it's going to be like LSU running away with it, but maybe LSU by 10. I could see that. So I guess that's LSU cover for me. We'll see. I think it's a good test on, how good Nussmeier is as a quarterback for LSU. I mean, like, is he going to continue and live up to this hype that at least I've heard on him?
I am going to take LSU purely out of principle because I'm getting really annoyed with the Beamer and South Carolina propaganda. I just feel like I've been, like you said, I think they're overrated. Like they had a bounce back game against Kentucky. I get it was on the road, but it's Kentucky. Like, well, yes. I don't know why that deserves all of the attention that it's getting.
I feel like the winner of that game was destined to be overhyped. Yes. Like if Kentucky had won that, everyone would have been like, oh man, Kentucky. It's just like one of those teams was just bound to win that game, obviously. And then
South Carolina struggled against Old Dominion last 2 weeks ago. If we not put that out of our brains, I don't know.
I actually kind of like momentarily forgot about that. So that just adds to my LSU cover.
Yeah, I like LSU here. I think so. Beamer's getting on my nerves. All right, last one. Again, SEC was bad this week, so I'm going to the Big 12 for our last game. Arizona, number 20, going to Manhattan, Kansas to face a 7-point favored K-State team. Avery Johnson, another guy who's a lot of hype up and down all around, like Nussmeier. People love him. People kind of think he's overrated. What do you got? Arizona, Kansas State.
Give me that Arizona offense. I'll take them. Maybe not outright, but with a 7-point cushion. Yeah, I'll take the upset there, or not. I don't know if I'm ready to pick Arizona in the game, but I'll take Arizona with the points.
Okay. Oh, so you've got them winning outright. You got them.
No.
I said with the points. Sorry,
I don't have them winning outright because I do think Kansas State is probably the better team. But I could see them losing by like 4. You know what I'm saying? So like, winning with the points. Yeah.
All right. I got the Cats. I don't really know what to think of the Big 12 anymore. I said Oklahoma State last week was a sneaky, maybe dark horse champ pick, and then they looked horrible for a half against Arkansas. Kansas State will probably doom me too, but I actually do kind of like Avery Johnson. I like what they've got going there. I'm gonna take them to defend home field and cover this 7.
I'm a big everybody outside of the SEC and Big Ten is just trash. So like it's just a matter of like anything can happen because they're all trash after that.
It's not the worst. It's not the worst assessment in the current state of college football, which, hey, the Pac is back. We're returning to Power 5, it looks like. So
with like basically a souped up Mountain West,
souped up Mountain West.
I think, I was talking with our intern, Henry Sklar, about that earlier today. They're got to be banking on Cal and Stanford coming back. I think that that's what their overall game plan is. Like, they're like, it's going to suck so much for Cal and Stanford to play
travel.
In the ACC. Like, not even a good, like just a crappy conference where they're going to have to where they have to travel as much. And I feel like they're going to be like there to welcome back Cal and Stanford with open arms. Now, is Cal and Stanford enough to like save, a conference? I mean, probably not, but at least gives them two brand names and a rivalry. That's a decent rivalry to come back. So I could see them kind of pulling one of those. I think, I feel like the Pac-12 needs to like pick apart and rebuild itself through like other failed conferences. Like maybe grab like a Colorado, like maybe like grab them back.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like maybe snatch like an SMU. And all of a sudden, like if you were able to do that and grab some of those teams, like maybe you got something cooking a little bit. But yeah, I'm not really excited with what I've seen from the rebuilt Pac-12, which is basically like Fresno State, So like,
Kalen DeBoer.
Kalen DeBoer's now coached in 2 Pac-12 teams because they still got Washington, right? No, they don't. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, so they don't. So
no. Kalen DeBoer is his former teams have now spread across the entirety of college football. But there you go. What started with looking forward to Camp Randall ended with Pac-12 talk. That's what you get on Tide Pod, right?
Everything. Yeah,
everything you can imagine with the world of college football. We will be back Sunday with a recap of Alabama and Wisconsin in a fun Camp Randall. Safe travels to the game if you are going. Enjoy it. And Tony and I will be back Sunday to recap it for you.